I remember meeting you at Phoebe, Pasadena, and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing group of people, and this is a great community, and you're such a great speaker.
Having been a real estate investor for 35 years, and I used to be a small business management consultant, believe it or not, many years ago. In 2000, I started as a small business management consultant. Why attach or why approach real estate from the perspective of what business am I designing?
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter.
Hey you, this is Christina Suter on Real Estate Breakthrough, and I have Alvin with me, and I am excited because I am always excited about my guests. That is true. But I wouldn't bring you a guest I wasn't excited about, but I'm particularly excited about Alvin because he gave me a mindset shift, which I thought which is important, and I've now applied to my real estate portfolio, and I want you guys to have access to that and apply it to your real estate portfolio. Because as you know, I'm all about your mindset is your basis of success in your business. That inner sense of grit isn't just based in pure will, it's based in your capacity to actually alter your form of thinking. So, Alvin, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi.
Glad to be here. Very excited about this. It's like full circle for me.
Tell me more. Why is it full circle for you?
I mean, I met you 2018, and I remember like that was just kind of my time to kind of just get back a little bit into the real estate. It's right before I decided to go 100% into real estate full time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I remember meeting you at Phoebe in Pasadena, and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing group of people, and this is a great community, and you're such a great speaker.
Thank you.
And I remember chatting with you the first time. I'm like, wow, like I really want to understand what you do. And now, like, I'm part of the Phoebe. So
yes, you are. You run your own Phoebe meeting. So why don't you let's sidetrack for a minute onto that. You run your own Phoebe meeting, and why did you choose to join it with Jeff and I forgot his name. The other gentleman that's with you guys,
Robert Wong.
Right?
Yeah, Robert's my partner, and I actually met him through one of your meetups. And actually,
that's
I met
so cool.
Jeff through one of your meetups too. This is why. So, you know, so I've always had this calling to educate and really spread, you know, the contribution aspect of I guess my life, you know, and I've always had that calling. And you know, I obviously in the beginning I thought, well, who's going to listen to me? What do I have to offer? Yeah, and the more I thought about it, and and you know, talking to people about certain things that I do, they're like, wow, you should really be speaking. You should really be, you know, teaching people all the things that you've learned because you've been doing real estate for the past 22 years, and you just have a whole different way of thinking about real estate. And so here I am, you know, unbeknownst to me, like I'm making impact.
You are making impact. You're running your Phoebe meeting, and you're also on podcasts, and you made an impact in my life, which is what made me go, you need to be on my podcast, because you do bring a unique background. I guess in some ways it's not unique. Everybody knows Robert Kiyosaki always encourages you to have a business as well as investments, right? Is to be able to diversify, to have at least 3 forms of income. So whether it's a business, an investment, and maybe some metals. He's deep into metals and crypto right now. So you've done that, and you're applying your business thinking to the real estate. And that was the thing that changed my mind, having been a real estate investor for 35 years. And I used to be a small business management consultant, believe it or not, many years ago. In 2000, I started as a small business management consultant, and I worked with, I had 90 different teachers that were teaching in a space that I ran. Of course, I rented a space out. Of course I did. And my business model was, of course, renting a space out. But I rented a space out to like yoga instructors for sat songs and meditation retreats and therapy sessions and karate and stuff like that. And I had 90 different teachers over the 2 years that I ran that space. It was 2 or 3 years. And I realized very quickly that those 90 different teachers really didn't understand how to run a business model. What they understood was how to teach what they taught, how to teach what they were passionate about, but they didn't understand the need or have the desire or passion for creating the business model underneath what they were doing so that they were able to be more successful and therefore expand their purpose, expand their teaching, that understanding the business model actually served them and served the world in actually understanding how to reach more people with the important message they had. So for me, it was funny when you said the same thing to me, but then it was new for me, even though right, like I tell other people this, but it was new for me. So let's repeat the conversation that you gave me, which was, I have a background in business. This is what I did, and this is how it affected me investing in real estate. So let's do that.
Yeah, maybe I need to take this step back and kind
Sure.
of just give you a backstory. How about that?
Please.
You mentioned Robert Kiyosaki, and again, like that's actually one of the very first books I ever read from cover to cover. I have going back to my childhood. I'm an immigrant. I came from the Philippines. I came to the U.S. at the age of 12, and my parents, all of us, kind of came here all at the same time. Uh, I don't exactly know why my parents decided to just jump and just take a full dive into a new country, but they had left a world of wealth. My parents come from a wealthy background,
Okay.
but they were kind of forbidden to come to the U.S. actually,
Okay.
because my dad was being slated to take over the business, and somehow he wanted to chart his own course.
Okay.
And by coming here, he was completely disowned. They brought money with them, but there's seven of us, five children. I'm the eldest of five. I was only 12 at the time, and come to the U.S. Didn't know too many people here. Everything was very foreign for them. Whole new world. They lost pretty much everything because they spent all their money. Because when they came here, they had no work history, no credit history, no home, so they couldn't qualify for anything, and then they ended up spending all their money, and we ended up in a kind of bouncing around from one friend to another, and the seven of us, you kind of outgrow our welcome really fast. So we're essentially homeless.
Yeah.
Then we ended up in a one-bedroom apartment in the middle of Los Angeles, East Hollywood. Still pretty rough at this point. But anyways, like I remember just sleeping in a one-bedroom apartment, sleeping on the floor, on the green carpet that smelled like crap. No bed. We just literally just had a blanket and pillows and slept on the carpet for a few months. And that was my recollection of what wealth meant, because we didn't have it anymore.
Right.
And so seeing my parents struggle at the time, I realized that, wow, if this country is called the land of opportunity,
We're missing it.
like, where is that? Where does that go? Like, what does this all mean? And so, yeah, I was like, when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, that kind of, the guy on the cover called me, because I'm like, here's an Asian guy, looks like my dad, and he's made it in this world of opportunity.
Yeah.
And so being a college dropout at the time, I'm like, wow, this is the only thing that makes sense to me right now. And the one thing I picked up from that book, especially the cash flow quadrant, was real estate, investing, and businesses. Like that's the path to financial freedom in this country. And so, yeah, so I charted my I guess my career from that. I started as a graphic designer and realized, and that's about the time I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I realized, wow, I need to start a business. I got to learn this business. And next thing you know, I had my own business. After working for a company for about 10 years, I learned how to run that business. I ran that company for my boss. And around 2008 is when that company was being sold. I decided then to ask my boss, hey, why don't you lay me off and give me severance pay? And so he did. And I was a little upset at first because I was kind of messing around, and he took it seriously. But it was a blessing in disguise, and I ended up starting my own business, and that just opened my entire world. Like I'm like, wow, this is my calling. This is what I need to do from here on. And that's also about the time I started investing in real estate. Me and my wife, started buying more real estate. Whatever, everything I earned from all these businesses that I was starting So I had a design agency. I had started flipping houses. I had a small mortgage company. I even had an aerospace company that sold airplane parts.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
That seems random, but
Um,
go for it. I mean,
yeah,
kind of in
that
design, kind of the area of design, but not
yeah.
quite.
Well, that didn't do very well. We
Okay.
closed that down pretty fast. Lost some money there.
Okay. That's
But
fair.
I had a toy company at one point too.
Yes.
I learned in my business, in my design agency, I started working with big brands. A lot of them were like entertainment, um, graphic design, movies, video production, and I learned product development for toys. And that's about the time I learned about toys and really developing products for all these big studios, big companies. Product development was my thing, and that's what I really excelled in. And that's what made me realize that I was looking at real estate the wrong way. Because what I've learned in product development is when you develop a product that serves a need, people will look for that product and chase that product instead of you chasing everybody. So that's the power of of making sure you create something that people want and people need. And and so yeah, in just my journey, I'm like, okay, I gotta really look at this in a way that really makes sense for me, especially if my end game is going to be real estate.
You said it beautifully. Thank you for telling the whole story because I think, one, people love stories and people can relate to stories. But two, it also teaches the lesson, right? Which is the lesson I was after, which is why attach or why approach real estate from the perspective of what business am I designing? And that designing a business lends you power. It allows you to create sort of a pull strategy. There's something you've created that people want to be a part of, and it's a value. And I love that part of your story involved, hey, I finally hit my purpose. When I was running my own company, like this was me. I knew I
Right.
had landed where me lived, and that you were able to
Hmm.
use your natural skills and talents in a variety of businesses. I'm going to go off to the side for a minute, and then I promise to come back in my conversation. One of the things I talk about with people when we talk about purpose and finding your purpose, people are like, oh, I need to find my purpose. I need to know if I want to be a nurse or if I want to be a doctor or if I want to be in biology. And I'm like, well, none of those are purpose. They're an expression of your purpose, but none of those are purpose by itself, right? Because a biologist might be fascinated with biology, but they might be fascinated with making a change in the world. Right? A doctor might be fascinated with people and the human system, but he might be fascinated also with making a change in people's lives. Right? And I would say that the pathway is the job, but what lights you up and what gets you excited every day is the feeling of being able to either contribute or being able to grow. And one of those two things being expressed through your job is what enlivens, I feel like, your sense of purpose and passion. And it's expressed your way. Like we talk about leadership. There's lots and lots of leadership books and lots of leadership conversations. I love leadership. I love doing it. But I'm a servant leader. I want to empower people. I want them to move forward. I don't want it to be about me. I'm not the one leading the charge. I am, but I'm not, because it's not about me. It's about them empowering themselves to create leadership in their lives, create leadership in my business, create leadership in their area. And that lights me up when I see my clients go, oh, I can be a financial leader in my world if I blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yes, that's it. You nailed it. That's the moment of transformation that I enact my business for.
Right.
Right? So that to me brings sense of purpose. And so I want to highlight it because when people go, well, what is my purpose? I want them to understand that it's not the vehicle, it's the moment of expression that expresses through the vehicle. And you just said it so well that I wanted to riff on that for a minute. So,
Thank you.
No, you just did it beautifully.
Yeah, to me, purpose is much bigger for me. My purpose is to to extend my family's legacy.
Okay.
And by that, I also mean my legacy, my kids. My purpose is to be able to educate them, not just how to be strong boys, but also to be men, and also be able to build their own success. Just similar to the way I did, similar to how
Your
my
dad.
mom and my dad, you know, made that leap of faith and fought through the struggle and created a whole new future for us.
Yeah.
And, for me, my goal right now is to educate myself as much as I can. So that way, when my kids are ready to receive, I'm a better teacher for them.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
why, like, I do everything I do. Like, I'm already financially free, but the bigger purpose for me now is to be able to channel that energy that I still have, because I don't want to just be sitting at home and watching Netflix all day.
Nope.
I still want to be able to show my kids I'm still working hard. I'm still trying to grow, so they can see, because the way I learned from my parents is by watching them. And
Yeah.
so my kids now are like, like I know they're learning not from me forcing education down their throat, but for them to actually see it in real life, see the struggles, see the action, see the buildings that I'm building, understand all the stress I go through, and also the rewards that come along with it. You know, One of the reasons why I actually do Phoebe is because my kids come to the Phoebe meeting every time.
Okay.
And it's my way for them to learn. I tell them, look, guys, you want to earn some money, why don't you come take notes, and I will give you $1 or $2 for everything you get right.
Okay.
And so they're there. That's how they earn. But they're also
Interesting.
learning at the same time.
That's good.
You know,
Yeah.
and for me, like, education and growth is one of the biggest things. Just chasing after, every opportunity to just expand your mind.
I like it. Thank you. Because, of course, I have my daughter and she's 16 now. So this becomes a thing. Last night, my daughter had a bit of we call it an existential crisis. And it's kind of an existential crisis. But to me, it's passing through the stages of growth, right? Because we all
Right.
have to pass through their some people, so historically they call it rituals, right? Or like, why do you have a bar mitzvah? Because it's a ritual of passing into adulthood, right? In the Jewish tradition, right? There was, young women used to be presented to society in a cotillion, right? So there's so many different, so last night she was having a bit of an existential crisis. She's like, Mom, I know I've lost that joy of youth. I took her to a place where basically there's a lot of drinking and smoking, and that was what was happening. And she said, we left. We left about 20 minutes later, but long enough for her to like take it in. She's like, is that all what being an adult is about? It's just getting more and more numb because you've lost your joy, and now you're just going to drink and you're going to smoke, and that's what you've got. And I went, that's not my point of view. Right. And so that's not my point of view. And so I said, I think it's about creating and crafting meaning. Like, you give up the joy of childhood, but you learn to sit in the joy of relationship. You learn to sit in the joy of mastery. You learn to sit in the joy of having satisfaction of something you've created, or a moment that's just occurred that feels powerful or potent. And she kind of, like, I think, accepted that. We went on back and forth for a little while there. And then finally she said something about, well, I do kind of know what's going on. I said, okay. She says, yeah, I'm just having one of those, like, I can see myself from the corner of the room. I'm having one of those contemplation moments where I'm trying to figure out what this means. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. I know that's what's happening too. You're having a contemplation moment. And I was just really, I think it's important to understand that you can craft a life of meaning, but the only way you do it to have a meaningful life is if you bring meaning to your life. And if you don't craft yourself as a person, which is what you're talking about, then you don't get to bring meaning to your life. That meaning is something you generate because you choose to have a meaningful life, and you choose to craft yourself as a human being that is joyful, is engaged, is contemplative, is choosing And that choosing is the beginning and the core of all growth, in my opinion. And then you
That's
get
right.
to have the privilege of having a meaningful life. And not everybody chooses the privilege of having a meaningful life. And it's there. You can choose it. But you have to choose it. And you have to keep committing to it, expanding yourself, being a better human being so you're a better role model, so you're more able to add to other people's lives and add to your own life. And it's this forward moving momentum that can be quite satisfying.
Yep.
You know? So, but you got to know your why, where satisfaction lies in order to do that.
Yep.
Well, we just completely hijacked this off to the side, but let me try to bring it back, which is if you're laying a business model over a business, you can then basically create a draw versus competing, right? So a lot of people do multifamily or they do residential. You've really focused on a particular business model, which to me made a lot of sense because it is something that is valuable. It offers a high level of service. It makes a difference in people's lives. And it's an extra business model, which brings more income to the business itself. So it's actually more profitable to you. So to me, it's a serving, but also a win-win.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about
So
that.
yeah, let's step back a little bit. Let
Sure,
me
go
kind of
ahead.
just tell you how I got to where it is.
Yeah.
So I've been investing for quite a while. So I invested in Los Angeles, invested in several other states, invested in many types of asset classes, including multifamily, including RV campgrounds, different states, everywhere. I tried everything.
Okay.
And I flip houses. I've done midterm rental, short-term rental. I have student housing. I got all forms of co-living. And what I realized is, everybody keeps chasing unit counts. And for some reason, to me, that's like everyone's just chasing some form of ego. And I'm like, I don't want to be chasing ego.
Yeah, ego's painful.
I want something that really makes sense. In my 22 years of investing all over the place, I realized one thing. A lot of in fact, majority of my portfolio was in Los Angeles, and majority of my wealth comes from the portfolio I had in Los Angeles. And what I've realized is, even though these are single families, sometimes they even outperform some of my multifamily properties out of state. Not just from a appreciation standpoint, but even from a cash flow standpoint. And it finally dawned on me what am I doing wasting my time investing out of state when I have better control here, in my opinion, because I have, I'm a builder. I'm an operator anyway. So it was less stress for me. I don't have to travel. I don't have to be stressed out about trusting a GC from out of state when I can't even keep an eye on them,
I understand.
And after a while, I'm like, well, all these units that I had were just giving me more headaches. And so I started thinking about what would happen if my goal is to not chase unit count, but instead, the goal would be to buy the least amount of units, but yet but have the most amount of cash flow I can have per unit.
Per unit, yeah.
And so I started thinking about that, and I try to simplify it in my head where, well, real estate is very simple. You buy and you hold. So then I had to choose, if I were to buy something and I were to hold something, what would it be? And it just occurred to me at that point when I was looking at my portfolio, I'm like, wow, everything I have in Los Angeles outperformed everything. That's it. I had to just keep buying in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And to me, single family was, the best leverage I can have financially, even from a financing standpoint. You got all these different programs. You got lower down payments, and sometimes with hard money now, because I've been doing flips. Sometimes I have hard money lenders offering me 100% financing on both acquisition and rehab. I'm like, wow, okay, well, I got all these leverages. Let me figure out a way to leverage that. So in my path, in my discovery, in my exploration of discovery here, I realized, I need to start packaging what I've learned in consumer products and developing products where I got to look at real estate as a product. And that's when I started thinking about okay, if I would do that, what would that look like? And I also miss all this other business I had because, in reality, guys, for all the all your audience here. There's an allure to real estate. You got all these gurus telling you, oh, you can make so much money in this. But real estate is a long game.
It's a long game.
You can't easily replace your income so quickly.
Yeah. And you pay if you treat it as a short game. You pay if you treat it as a short game. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, unless you put businesses, and that's the power sometimes having own your own business, because businesses can actually generate more revenue. And so I started thinking then, like, okay, well, I need to create a product. That means I have to design a certain product or a real estate that would fit, or at least would accommodate a business on top of it. And so I started going down the path of like, what would that look like? I started with like short-term rentals. That's a business on top. So I'm like, okay, with all this regulation that's happening now, though, it's becoming harder and harder. Started going towards midterm rental. So now I got midterm rental and short-term rental. You start to package that together. And with all the while thinking like, it's just being able to hold the real estate. You got to figure out how to hold the real estate. And to me, if you have a business on top, that just give it a little bit more security, in my opinion, because now you have control over that business that goes on top of real estate. You're also forcing that cash flow. 3 years ago, I started exploring this idea of renting by the room, co-living. And there's so many different forms of that, as I finally realized. Like, I started with student housing. I got like 4 or 5 of those happening at the same time, and I love that. And so I'm like thinking, okay, well, what's the next? What's next on top of this? What other forms are there? And you got professionals, you got all these other avenues now, like
live work,
renting by the room. You got PadSplit coming into Los Angeles. That is a platform for those who don't know. PadSplit is a platform where it's like a marketplace for those who are searching for room rentals. And I'm starting to look into that. But there's also other avenues, like, in my journey to help my mom. By the way, my mom has Alzheimer's.
Okay. Yep.
And this is why I started going down that path of assisted living, because when I was looking for a home for her, I couldn't find one that's suitable for her, at least not for my standards. And I was so shocked at how expensive they were. Yeah. And how much of a wait list there is.
Yeah, there is. In LA, in the infill centers in particular.
Oh my God, it's so ridiculous. Exactly. And there's not too many of them at the time when I was looking, and I just heard this ding, 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 ding. I go, wow, like that's something that's missing. There's a housing crisis there. There's a huge supply and demand issue. And the more I dove into it, the more I realized, well, what's the bottleneck here? And it comes out to be real estate. I'm like, oh, well, I got that part.
Yes, you do.
I got that figured out. I'm like, and what's this? Oh, it's just a business. I'm like, well, I can figure that out. And so that's when I started going the path of assisted living facilities. And right now I'm in the middle of launching 3 of them. I learned how to build their real estate. It's not the easiest path. This is not like a regular rehab, but I look at everything that's a challenge, especially in this state of high barriers. I look at high barrier of entry equating to bigger opportunities. You just have this bigger moat that I guess gives you less competition, and you're only competing against yourself. So yeah.
That's good. And it's the advantage of the bigger moat also is the bigger returns. So to me, it also, the story made sense as I listened to you talk before about this and again now, which is it's applying your talent. And your talent is business development and design, right? And being able to understand how something comes together as a design and then implement it through a business model. And then so you've taken the same skill that you took before when you were doing design. You ran your own design company. You started the next successful, truly larger company was the toy company. And you had these other companies along the way. But each one of those, and I think you sold the toy company, if I remember correctly. Do you sell that one? No.
We still have it.
You still
We
have
still
it?
have it
Okay.
actually.
That's right. But you had these different companies along the way, and you used your business design sense, not just toy design sense, but business design sense to create a business model. Put the who's in place, put the people in place to create a successful business model. And now you're over here going, well, I understand real estate as an asset class, as a tool, right? Like a hammer or a nail or a screwdriver. I understand as a tool. Now I can lay my business model over the top of it. And you realize where there was a gap in the industry. So now you're using your talent and real estate, which you know, and a gap in the industry, and you're putting it together to go, well, let's do this. Because I approached doing elderly care in Indianapolis, and what I quickly ran up against is I don't have the who. I can get the real estate, and I've got the contractor. I can put the model together physically. But once I have the model together, I don't have the who can run that model. So clearly you found some who's that can run that model.
I think finding the who is relatively easy if you have the right product and you attract the right people.
Okay.
And you attract the right branding. And it's all about relationships. I'm really good at building relationships, and that's one thing I always pursue is relationships. And so to me, it's not that difficult to find the right partners in place. And just kind of taking a step back a little bit, one thing I learned in product development is there's a compounding effect when you start putting two asset classes together. What I mean by that is when I invented this toy, it wasn't just a bath toy. It was also a toy that lives in a different category. And so when I had retail opportunities, it sat in three different areas. And so that's one of the reasons why when I pitched the toy in Shark Tank, they wanted to completely buy us out. Because I realized then, like, once you start putting two pieces together, maybe even three pieces together, all of a sudden it becomes a completely different asset class.
Well
And that's
said.
what I've realized about real estate is that, like, people looking at it just an investment, but imagine if you put a business on top of it, all of a sudden that alone is a completely different asset because the value is much greater because of a new change of use,
Yeah.
you
It's-
know?
I-
And not only that, but like, it's also serving a purpose. It's creating a lot of impact. It's checking on my bucket, everything, like creating impact, helping people,
Yeah.
increasing cash flow,
Yep.
being able to keep the real estate for a long time. And it's very, very fulfilling.
Yeah. I can see that. It's uses your skills and it creates impact that creates fulfilling. Like we did that early in the conversation, like how do I create a meaningful life? Well, I add meaning to my life. How do you create a piece of meaningful real estate? You add meaning to the real estate in your lane, right? Adding meaning randomly doesn't necessarily create satisfaction, but creating that meaning from your lane, your talent, and your focus. Now you've got a unique product that's useful and valuable to you and useful and valuable to your clients, right? To the
Yeah.
people you're serving. So I think that's the light bulb that went off in my head when I was listening to you, right?
But you got to take that little step further too, because it's not just the business that's on top, but the real estate itself is specifically designed for multi-use, which is the one thing that I believe in. Is like, I like this. I've been developing this concept I'm calling the Swiss Army House,
Okay.
which is a product itself. Like
Okay.
I built a 7-bedroom, 7.5 bathroom house. Each bedroom has its own separate bathroom, separate exit, separate entrance. But it can work as any kind of co-living model.
Yeah. At that
Right
point
now,
it can.
it's an assisted living. But while I'm actually in licensing, it's an Airbnb.
Right.
And I'm actually sometimes I'm even renting each room separately.
Yeah.
And so it's got all this multifunctional exits to it as well.
Right.
So that's what I meant by building a product and putting different kinds of business on it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, if one business doesn't work, I can easily pivot and change a whole different system. And I know, we're a little bit coming on time here, but
We are.
what I want to say is, like, to be in real estate right now, it's very, very tough. But you have to be dynamic. You got to be creative in real estate. And one way to do that is just, think outside of the box. And there's so many avenues that people aren't thinking about. And the minute you start tapping into all these different niches, opportunity just opens up for you.
Yeah. On that note, if people want to engage with you, they want to maybe invest in one of your new developments. We talked a little bit how right now you don't have a project, but you will. You're continuing developing new projects. They want to learn from you. They want to come to your Phoebe meeting. Why don't you tell people how they can get a hold of you?
All right. So I'm in Los Angeles. I can be reached through, I'm all over social media right now. Alvin Ized, Alvinized. I also have monthly meetups with Phoebe.
FIB.
I run the San Fernando Valley chapter. We meet once a month, the third Tuesdays of every month in San Fernando Valley, Sherman Oaks Galleria.
Yep. And they can find you, it sounds like, on social media. So thank you so much, Alvin. I really wanted to bring this thinking, not just the product, but the thinking to my listeners. And I really appreciate you taking the time to lay that out so people could have a change in their assumptions about real estate, how they can use real estate, how they can add their own talents to real estate, and how it can be an expression of purpose and fulfillment and create meaning for yourself and other people. Like that whole stream, to me, can absolutely tie together for everybody. Anybody investing in real estate can create that stream of success and satisfaction if they choose to bring it forward in their portfolio. All right, this is Christina Suter on Real Estate Breakthrough. I so appreciate having Alvin with me on the show. You can tune in next week for another show.